Welcome to Movie Recall. In today's video, we will be going through the 2019 movie X-Men Dark Phoenix Boogie Woman. It's time to recall. Let's get started. Turn on subtitles and spoilers ahead. The movie starts and we see a family of three going in a car. The little girl's name is Jean Grey, sits in the back seat of the car while her parents are in the front. The year is 1975. There is a song playing in the car, but Jean Grey does not seem to like that at all. She tells her mother to change, but the mother tells her that she can play the songs of her choice when she is a grown-up, but as of right now, this song will keep playing. She gets really angry when she hears this and goes on to scream at the top of her lungs. The pitch of her voice is so high that the car's windows break, and then her dad loses control over the wheel and crashes into another car. Both the parents die right on the spot, while Jean does not even have a single scratch on her body. All the doctors are shocked to see this, and they really don't have an explanation for this. Professor Charles Xavier comes to the hospital and meets her. He offers Jean to go with him to his school where he has a lot of other kids with special abilities like Jean. She tells him that she does not want to go with him. He then tells the little girl that she has mutant abilities, and now she has to decide whether she wants to use these abilities for a good cause or for a bad cause. Jean is told that she will be trained to use her mutant abilities in the best way possible, but for that, she is going to have to come to the school at all costs. When Jean goes to the school and looks at the building, she expresses that she finds it really beautiful, which is why she does not want to stay there, as when she gets angry, all the things around her start shattering into pieces, and she does not want to do that to this school. Charles, however, tells her not to worry about that, because even if she does destroy something at times, he has the ability to bring it back to normal. The professor tells the little girl that she is going to have to trust him, and she agrees. Years go by just like that, and in 1992, during the Space Shuttle Endeavour's first mission, the shuttle is damaged by solar flare-like energy, and the president calls upon the X-Men to save the astronauts. Charles tells the president to leave everything to him because he has got people who can turn things around with ease. Charles then goes on to call his team, and Jean is also included in that team. She is now a grown-up girl. The whole team gets on a shuttle and makes their way up to space. When they get there, they see the shuttle of those astronauts going in circles, and it seems to be out of control. It is now clear that this plane is just about to come in the way of the solar flare, and all of them are going to die. Mystique goes on to tell Scott to use his eye blast to lessen their speed because the rotation of the spaceship is too fast. Kurt then goes on to make a huge hole with his eye blast and gets in there with Quicksilver. He goes on to teleport all the NASA scientists, bringing them to their own spacecraft. This is when one of the girls from the astronauts goes on to say that their leader is still in the spaceship, so they should rescue him as well. Mystique, however, goes on to say that the solar flare is now really close to the spaceship, and if they got any closer to the ship now, it'd put them and him in danger. They say that they need to get out of there. This is when we see Charles, who is reading everyone's mind, and he tells Mystique that Jean Grey might be able to do this job. This is when Jean Grey gets up and volunteers to go to the other ship to bring back the commander. With the help of Kurt, she manages to get inside the other spaceship while she is told that she is going to have to pull it off within the next 30 seconds. She spends the first 20 seconds just looking for the commander. Kurt is able to bring back the commander, but the solar flare gets there and Kurt does not have enough time to bring her back. She is now left behind. Jean is now struck by heavy energy, but that as we look on, it seems as if she is consuming that energy inside her body, and then she gets back to normal. When the X-Men make their way back, they receive a warm welcome as they are now heroes because they saved many valuable lives. All of them are happy except Mystique, who goes on to confront Xavier, telling him that he put their lives in danger and that Jean Grey came real close to losing her life. Mystique tells Xavier that she thinks he only cares about his and his Academy's fame because he loves the X-Men. She says that she does not understand what it is just X-Men and not X-Women because she is well aware that whenever there is a crucial task, a woman is seen pulling it off, just like today when Jean Grey risked her life to save the commander of the other spaceship. That day, Charles goes on to tell his students that they are allowed to party as much as they can, and at the party, Jean ends up drinking a lot at a bonfire, and when she sees fire, she ends up losing control and causes a blast there, in which Cyclops and some other students get injured. This is when Charles gets active and tries to get into Jean's brain, but she blocks him. She tells him to stop trying to get inside her brain. This is when Xavier goes on to reveal that he had placed mental barriers within Jean's mind to block out the trauma of the car accident. Additionally, he reveals that he lied about both of her parents dying in the accident. As it turns out, the father, Jean Grey, is still alive. Charles had put a barrier in her mind to bar her from the memories of her old life, but after the incident with the Phoenix in space, her powers have increased. Jean leaves the X-Mansion and returns to her family home, where she encounters her family. However, she notices that there are only photos of her mother in the house and questions her father as to why he never looked for her following the accident. Her father tells her that she is the one responsible for everything that went wrong. He adds that it is because of her anger he now has lost the person he loves the most, which is why he decided to give Jean to Charles Xavier, because he was the only man that could control her. After Jean informs him that she can read minds, John intentionally recalls the entire incident mentally so that Jean could see, and it is shown that Jean rendered her mother unconscious while driving, thereby killing her. As John considered his wife the most important person in his world, he resented Jean for causing his wife's death. On the other hand, Xavier wakes himself up. He finds out that Jean is not in the X-Mansion anymore. He tells Mystique that he knows where she must be. The X-Jet then arrives on the street and the X-Men corner Jean, who retaliates, injuring Quicksilver, and then one student tells Charles that she has got a shot on Jean, but Xavier tells him not to shoot because they want to take her back to the X-Mansion. Mystique then moves forward to talk to her, but she does not want to listen to her. She tells Jean that she understands that Jean has been through a lot, but she still has to come back to the school. All of this starts making Jean anxious, and she loses control over herself yet again. She causes another blast and sends Mystique flying. Mystique hits a pointy pole that goes through her body. Mystique is now dead, and Jean cannot believe that she just killed a good friend. In the process, Jean also attacks police officers, prompting public reception towards her and mutants in general to become sour. The next thing we see, all of them are at Mystique's funeral, and Hank is pissed at Xavier for not letting him shoot Jean when he had the chance. Jean then travels to Genosha, a mutant safe haven run by Eric, and asks him for help to prevent herself from killing more people. She says that she knows he has helped a ton of people get better in the past, so she wants him to help her as well. However, he tells her to leave right away. Just as they talk, the US military helicopters arrive, and they have been tasked with catching Jean, and they tell Eric that they know Jean Grey is at his place. Eric then asks them why they want to catch her, and the military persons reveal that Jean has taken the lives of a lot of people, so she must pay for what she has done. The officer leading the raid goes on to tell Eric to give Jean up to them, or they are going to kill him along with all his men. This is when Jean herself comes out and starts destroying all the helicopters out there. Eric tries his best to stop Jean, but she does not listen to anyone. He then tries to stop her with force, but realizes that his powers are no match to Jean's powers. He then uses his powers to throw the remaining helicopters out of there to save them from Jean. Jean finally stops, and Eric tells her to leave, saying that he does not want her anywhere near his camp because if she is there, the military will come to catch her again, and they could very much kill his men in the process. In the meantime, a shape-shifting alien race known as the Dabari arrive on Earth with the purpose of harnessing the cosmic flare inside Jean in order to conquer Earth. Vuk, the leader of the Dabari, encounters Jean and explains to her what she absorbed was not a solar flare, but in fact a cosmic energy entity that was responsible for eradicating the Dabari home planet years ago. She goes on to tell Jean that the people she knows do not actually know the importance of her powers. She adds that only she knows how important and powerful Jean actually is. Vuk goes on to tell her that she has been blessed with great powers, so she needs to start thinking big now. Vuk tells Jean that they're going to work together to make a new world in which Vuk will be with Jean every step of the way. Jean then ends up going with Vuk as she has no idea what Vuk really is. On the other hand, Hank the Beast has decided that he is going to do something about Jean because he is really angry at her for killing Mystique, who was loved by all at the X-Mansion as she spent 50 long years with these people. Defecting from the X-Men, he flees the X-Mansion using the X-Jet and flies to Genosha, informing Eric that Jean had murdered Mystique. Mystique used to be a really good friend of Eric as well, so he gets angry and decides that he is going to help Hank put down Jean forever. He then joins Eric, Ariki, and Selene in traveling to New York City in order to assassinate Jean and avenge Mystique. Using Cerebro, Xavier realizes what their goal is and recruits Cyclops, Storm, and Nightcrawler to save Jean's life. During the battle, both Eric and Professor X encounter Jean. Jean is now with the aliens, so the aliens fight by her side, and Eric goes on to attack Jean, but she is too powerful for him. She is just about to finish him off when he is saved by one of his people, but he is now knocked out. Charles also gets there and goes on to try and control Brain using his own strong brain, but Jean puts up a great fight yet again. Xavier now realizes that Jean Grey has almost become invincible. His powers are nothing compared to hers now. Charles finally tells Jean that he knows he cannot get in her brain, but she can very much get in his brain, so he asks her to come in his brain and see for herself whether he was wrong or right. He says that when her own father did not want her, he was the one who took her in, took care of her, and made her what she is now. She goes in his brain and he shows her the memory he had with her father, where he expressed support and hope for Jean. She learns that Xavier was the one there for her when she had no one. The memory reasserts Jean's original personality, and she spares Xavier. She is then tempted by Vuk to transfer the cosmic energy to her. While Vuk is able to absorb some of it, she is struck by Cyclops before the transfer is completed. The military then intervenes, using collars that disable mutant powers to apprehend Professor X, Jean, Eric, Cyclops, Storm, Nightcrawler, Ariki, and Selene, while Vuk manages to escape. They are taken away on a train where they are told that the US do not need these mutants anymore because they have lost a lot of their people because of the violence done by these mutants. They tell the mutants that all of them are going to be in prison for the rest of their lives. After a while, Xavier informs Beast that he was wrong for what he had done to Jean, but that the real Jean still exists within. Cyclops also tells Beast and Eric that Mystique had died believing that, and that she wouldn't have wanted them to kill Jean. This is when Vuk and her Dabari forces attack, overpowering the soldiers while the mutants ask the officers to set them free, adding that they can save their lives. They are finally freed. Now a great battle occurs between the Dabari aliens and the X-Men. Charles and Scott convince Hank, Eric, and his allies that Jean is not beyond help, and they unite to fend off the Dabari attackers before Vuk arrives. Charles confers with Jean within his mind and she forgives him, saving the mutants from the ensuing train wreck and disintegrating the remaining Dabari. Vuk again attempts to drain the force from Jean, who flies them into space to unleash all of her power and kill Vuk. Jean then transforms into a phoenix-shaped being of energy. The scene then changes to Xavier's school, which is now called Jean Grey School for Gifted Youngsters. Charles is now retired while the new principal is Hank. In the last scene, we see a phoenix-shaped huge flame in the sky, indicating that Jean Grey is still alive, and with that, the movie comes to an end. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new movie recaps.